Hey everyone, welcome back to Crypto Cash. Thank you so much again for joining me here. I hope you're having a fantastic day. We're taking a look at Solana, seeing what's going on. We are seeing a nice little continuation, obviously from the weekend. It performed very well over the weekend, but it's starting to see some cracks in the glass here. So we'll talk about that and a few other things, but we're starting to see a bit of a shift in momentum here with this, well, it's a bearish type of pattern here. And keep in mind, we don't take trades based on patterns, but we can take trades based on, how well or poorly coins are performing versus Bitcoin. And then also, of course, what's going to happen with Bitcoin. So I do feel like 83K range is inevitable for Bitcoin at this point, which could put us in the mid 120s for Solana. We also have a CME gap I'll describe to you here shortly. That's important to recognize. That goes down as low as about 122, if I'm not mistaken. We'll double check that here. But key takeaway is that we have majority liquidation here, both to the upside and downside, fully swept when we saw this little bit of a pullback over the weekend, and then once more a rally right back up. So this increase leads me to believe that Solana is strong. And it's probably best not to bet against it. In fact, we closed our Solana trade at break even yesterday, even though the price is pulling back down now, or we'd be in profit on that trade. It's important to recognize that when coins start to break free from Bitcoin, shows good strength, you want to maybe consider, closing those trades or perhaps, shifting gears. Okay, not to say we can't still pull back, just letting you know that we saw some strength from Solana here. Having said that, though, there is some liquidation as low as 125 to 122, which puts us perfectly in line with that lower CME gap, which I will show you here shortly. When we look at liquidation delta, it's starting to taper off pretty significant. In other words, Bitcoin is still maintaining about 12 billion liquidation long delta, letting us know we have strong bullish continuation potential for that coin. However, we see this here as well with a roughly 1.5 billion for Solana that's now cut in half almost with this recent pullback. So just know profits are being taken at some point, and today may be that profit-taking day for us, considering we didn't see a ton of profit-taking over the weekend, which was unusual. In fact, I haven't had a chance to look, but I think we might have broke even on the weekend for, green versus red, and that would put us in a position where, we're lowering the odds of retracement on weekends. It's one weekend, let's not get too ahead of ourselves. Anyways, the whole point of me mentioning this is that we have open interest in this range of 128 to 133. So we lose 128. I think the low 120s does make sense. So we're looking for a candlestick closure above 128 today, I would say, as a good baseline, just to kind of make sure that we, we're on the right side of those tracks. Take a look here, though. This is the CME gap that I'm referring to for Solana futures. So you can see 122 is roughly that lower range there where the price action closed on Friday, gapped up for 1 to 127 on Sunday. So during that close, oftentimes these profits are inevitably going to be taken because it's a lot of money on the board and market makers want to collect their profits from the weekend, right? So it's just kind of how it's a standard trading. Bitcoin does the same thing. However, there's no Bitcoin gap. So that's why this coin is much stronger, but also more susceptible to pullback. Right. Having said that, let's look at the weekly time frame really quick, just to get get a baseline here on where we're at. It's not really phenomenal. The weekly time frame hasn't changed much at all. We're still looking to maintain above the $94 range. That's where the 200-day SMA is hanging out. We're a long ways away from that, but just know from a macro perspective, 140, if I'm not mistaken, 141 is that macro volume channel. So Solana is going to need a lot of momentum to get through 140. Just please understand that. And it's not just momentum, it's volume. We need to see a lot of volume to flow into that. Cool. So daily time frame is looking mostly bullish. It's not like super phenomenal. We're not above the 50-day SMA officially, but we're maintaining closer to that local point of control at 128 and obviously the 20-day SMA. Furthermore, too, we can also see that we're above 50 on the RSI, and that's generally a strong quality. Okay, so these are good things from a macro perspective. Generally, we're on the right side of the tracks for the most part here. It would make sense to range between 120 and 140, just based on the simple fact that we got these 2 points of control kind of holding the price action in place, and we got a lot of confluence in that low 120 range. So if we do see 120 from Solana, I'm going to be more than happy to consider a long at that point because there's a lot of support there and reinforcement. So take a look here too as well. When you take a look at the areas here, we can recognize that we're above all moving averages. We're still above the 20. This is a good continuation, and a likelihood of further upside makes more sense. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Lately, we've seen every good continuation potential pattern from Bitcoin and pretty much every single altcoin get fizzled out at some point because greed is a very real thing, and there's a decent amount of profit to be taken here. So please recognize filling that CME gap seems like an inevitability at this point. And I first thought that it was a long ways away, but I think we may actually see that happen today or tomorrow. It's a distinct possibility. So for those who still kept your short position open that I sent out for my trade alert on Saturday, maybe consider keeping it open. I mean, our average entry is around 132. Adjust your stop loss lower. Make sure you stay in profit, and consider leaving that open. Just don't get too greedy with your take profit targets. I think 122, 123 would be a solid consideration for a take profit target. But everything here except for MACD diverging is showing that we still have good strength and overall, a good situation here. However, you do got to recognize as well that just because we're above 50 on the RSI doesn't mean we're going to just keep going higher. We are starting to see a divergence here with stochastic as well as money flow index pulling back. We're now below that moving average. These are early signs of short-term trend reversal. Okay, so I'm leaning a little bit more towards my original thesis on Saturday, seeing that low 120 range, basically the local high retested as a new low, and then once that CME gap's filled, likely back on track. Okay, that's kind of what I'm looking for. I'm also looking for a long in the low 83K range as well. That's my consideration. So hope that makes sense and I described that correctly. I deeply appreciate you watching and learning here today. Make sure you join us over on Twitter, Telegram, and Discord. There's a lot of good information out there as well. I look forward to working with you though. Thanks again for your time. We'll see you the next one. Take care.